Walking away from the door, he looked at Rife and shrugged his shoulders. See, I told you it wasn't going to do any good. They're not going to be speaking to me for a long time. You play too much. And if this is something that all you do to each other, you all play too much, said Rife, shaking his head and walking toward the door. I apologized to them. So we okay or what? Yeah, we're okay. I have to go now. So I guess I'll see you in school tomorrow. And looking toward the girls' bedroom door, he called out to the girls so they could hear him. Good night, ladies. And like Matt said, I didn't have anything to do with this whole thing, so please don't hold it against me. I hope we can be friends, and I look forward to seeing you in school tomorrow. Have a good evening. Both boys stood looking at each other for a whole minute, and when no response came from the room, they both sighed heavily and headed toward the front door. When Rife had gone and Matt had finished the chores designated by his mother, he walked upstairs to her study, bracing himself for the reprimand he was sure he was going to get for embarrassing his sisters in front of Rife. A half hour later, when he exited her study, his eyes were moist from the heart wrenching story of his young cousins and the fear and confusion they must be feeling. He wholeheartedly agreed that his mother should do whatever she could to help them, and he expressed his admiration for his mother's courage in taking three extra children into her home and her heart. It's not going to be easy, Maddie, and I'm going to need you guys to stop these silly pranks and be a little more responsible and considerate. Yes, ma'am, I know, and I apologize about tonight. I admit I did go a little too far. I already apologized to Rife and the girls. You did? Oh, Maddie, that was very mature of you. I'm so proud of you for taking the first step and mending fences with your sisters. As far as that young man is concerned, be careful what you do in front of other young people. You might want to invite them to church with you sometimes, and you can't do that if you've offended them. Matt knew he should let his mother know it was Rife's idea to apologize to the girls, but decided to keep the compliment and let the topic end on a happy note. Do you know when these kids will be coming? I think they will be here sometime in the next couple of weeks. Wow, that's soon, huh? Well, you know you can count on me to help out any way I can, Mom. I knew I was going to be able to count on you, sweetie. And the next few days are going to be very busy ones. I'm giving up my study and putting the little girls up here, which means you're going to have the pleasure of having a roommate. The silence that filled the room was deafening, and Denise patiently waited for the protests and complaints that she was sure would come. Matt had always had his room to himself, and to suddenly get a roommate and one that was younger than he was, she was sure was going to be a bit of a pill to swallow. Matt felt anger and resentment rising in him like a hot air balloon, but refused to add to his mother's problem by acting like a spoiled child. It would be easy to rant, rave, and complain, but the bottom line was the kids were coming, and no matter what he said, they needed some place to sleep, and his was the only room available for the boy. His mother was always sacrificing and was known for being silent and strong in times of distress and confusion. And since she was his hero, he decided to adopt her attitude and make her proud of him. It's okay, Mom. We all have to make sacrifices, and I'm sure it won't be so bad having a roomie. Maddie, you are a mountain of surprises tonight. Thank you for making this easy for me. Somehow I knew I was going to be able to count on you. We're going to have to rearrange my study and put my things in the basement. But your room, it's all ready for another person. Of course, we don't have to do any of that until the weekend, but I'm just letting you know about some of the things we're going to have to do. As his mother began verbalizing the changes he was going to have to make to his room, the reality of what he was going to do started sinking in to Matt's brain. He was no longer going to have his cherished freedom. He was no longer going to be able to retreat to his kingdom and bask in sweet solitude away from his annoying, bratty sisters. And since his new roommate was going to be considerably smaller than him, he was going to have to deal with laying down rules and possibly deal with someone tampering with his personal items. Matt suddenly didn't know if he was going to be able to be as mature as he first promised and as his mother was counting on him to be. The look of doubt and unease that slowly crept over Matt's face caused Denise to stop her rambling and reach out to embrace her oldest child and plant a soft kiss on his forehead. Don't worry, Maddie. I know it's not going to be easy, but God will give us strength to make it through this. And I'm not expecting you to jump through hoops, but if you just try to practice a little patience and understanding, you'll be surprised at how easy it will all turn out to be. His mother said with a smile that melted his heart and erased all anxiety and doubt from his mind. I'm not worried, Mom. I love you. I love you too, Maddie, she said, suddenly sounding a little misty and hugging him a little tighter. Matt hugged his mother back and found tears welling up in his eyes. Okay, honey, it's been a long day and we both have to get up in the morning. So good night and sweet dreams, she said, swift peck on the cheek and a gentle shove toward the door. Good night, Mom. Lynette and Yvette Jones could not remember the last time they had been so angry. As a matter of fact, anger was an understatement for what they were feeling. They were furious. Sure, the three of them had gone a little too far at times with their pranks, but they had never involved anyone from outside the house. How could he embarrass them like this? And in front of Rife of all people, how could he do this to them? When the reality first struck them of what he was about to do, they felt hopeless and trapped, sitting at the kitchen table with the chicken grease all over their face and hands, with no makeup on, their hair undone, and them in baggy sweats. All they wanted to do was disappear. Matt had the broadest grin on his face that said all the things he probably felt this morning when he discovered the mayonnaise in his sneakers. Their mother was calmly eating her dinner and looking from one to the other in her usual quiet manner, knowing what was going on, but refusing to interfere. And then there was Rife, standing there looking so handsome, so sexy, so breathtakingly fine, with the most innocent look on his face. When he first walked into the room, he had a smile that probably melted every girl's heart that he aimed it at. But when he saw the panic and embarrassment on the girls' faces, his smile froze, then slowly wilted, and he just stood there looking like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming car. When the girls got into their room, tears were pouring down Vet's eyes, and Net just stood with her back, leaning on their door with her arms folded across her chest. Neither one of them saying a word. The anger and hatred they both felt for their brother at that moment prevented them from speaking even to each other. They both knew they weren't going to be finishing dinner, so they set about making themselves comfortable, waiting for Rife to leave. Net pulled out a book she had been reading and stretched out on her bed. Vet, on the other hand, just jumped under her covers and was soon fast asleep. Every time Net looked over at her sister, her anger for her brother grew and grew. This was the first time Vet actually admitted she was interested in a boy, and Matt had to mess it up with his stupid prank. Net knew her sister, and she knew there was no way Vet was going to speak to Rife after being humiliated in front of him by her own brother. When she heard her mother walk upstairs, Net heard angry voices coming from the dining room. She crept to the door and pressed her ear against it so she could better hear. Rife was furious at Matt for involving him in his practical jokes and demanded that he get it straight that he had nothing to do with it. He must care about one of them if he wanted to make sure they knew he had nothing to do with it. Net made a promise to herself then and there she was going to do everything in her power to get Vet and Rife together, even though she had secretly wanted him for herself. Net didn't know why her sister wasn't as confident as she herself was. They both looked exactly alike, and Net knew she could get any boy she put her mind to. But unfortunately, her sister always seemed to feel she didn't measure up to Net or the other girls for that matter. But that was okay. As far as Net was concerned, Rife was as good as Vet's. This made Net feel a little bit better, but her mood suddenly darkened to hazardous levels of black when Matt knocked on their bedroom door, startling her and waking Vet.